Do you ever find yourself getting stuck on the Enderman Slayer boss and don't know how to progress? Well, you're in luck, as today I will be making a comprehensive guide for the cheapest and fastest way to kill all 4 tiers of the Enderman Slayer boss. This guide will cover the phases of the boss, the gear you need and enchants required for your gear, and then the magical power gear, and also just a couple tips for the boss to help you kill it faster. If you want to skip to a particular tier of the boss, I will be putting the timestamps on the screen currently to allow you to skip to each tier of the boss. Keep in mind, I will be repeating things based on the tier of the boss and the stuff that's required here, so if stuff sounds like it's being copied, that's because it is. For the tier 1 Void Gloom, you don't really need to know much. All you need to know is that there are a couple armor sets that you need in order to have enough defense. And these particular armor sets are armor sets such as Mastiff armor or just like Shadow Assassin armor, which I have in my backpack here. As you can see here, if you have these armor sets, you should have plenty of health. And you probably can do it in like less if you had something to say like strong dragon armor. It probably is enough. If you can get past a T4 Void Gloom, you can probably take on a T1 Void Gloom. But anyways, we'll get on to the next tier. Taking on a tier 2 Enderman Slayer is a huge step up from the tier 1, with the health jumping from 300k to 10 million and the DPS tripling up to 5,000 damage per second. Let's break down what you need to defeat the boss. Okay, so for healing, you are going to want the Wand of Atonement, and for healing with Ultimate 5-star, and tend to be a minimum of a glass cloak or better for healing, as well as stuff like a blue belt with an epic Enderman pet for this, just because the epic Enderman pet does give 30% less damage from end monsters at level 100 at the epic or higher. And I would just recommend getting an epic Enderman pet right now, just because it'll make it a lot easier. And make sure you also have a minimum of 500 magical power so that you're dealing ample damage. And if you're really struggling with healing, you can equip something like a Reaper Mask or a Revived Heart. And make sure you're also using a Power Orb as well, just because this can be very useful for additional healing. As you can see, I just have a Radiant Power Orb, which just gives a 1% buff. But you could also use something like a Mana Flux or higher, as well as that tends to give more healing per second. And make sure that when you reach Enderman Slayer level 4, you can equip Final Destination armor, as it is extremely good against Void Glooms, as it tends to give you more defense for the amount of Enderman that you kill. It can go so high and it gives you so much defense. It's just really good. But before you have that, you could use something like 3/4 Necron with a Reaper Mask, but also, you could use some Shadow Assassin with your Reaper Mask, would probably work, but you're going to need a little bit more healing since it's slightly less defense and health. And make sure you're also putting Rejuvenate 5 on all your armor pieces like you would expect, just because you get additional healing from that as well. And I would also recommend to use the Void Edge Katana with the recommended enchants that I have on screen or higher, just because these enchants are specifically geared towards Enderman Slayer, and they are very good at helping you survive and dealing additional damage, with the additional buff of receiving 6% less damage from Enderman when held, and dealing plus 200 damage to Enderman. I would also highly recommend that you have the Hot Potato Books on here, just because the Hot Potato Books significantly boost the amount of damage that you get hit by more than you would think. And another thing is you will want Summon for this, just because the hits phase starts dealing actual damage, and it's just a good thing to have for higher tier bosses. You should have at minimum Wither Spectre or souls from the Crimson Isles, just because Wither Spectres are very good at this stage, and they're very easy to get as well. Oh, the boss also introduces a new beacon mechanic at this stage, where a beacon is thrown at and you must touch it within 5 seconds, otherwise you will die. And if you're struggling for damage, again, you can use the aspect of the end to teleport into the ground to activate the second perk on the Enderman and pet, which is Teleport Savvy, which buffs the transmission abilities, granting 50 damage for 5 seconds on use. And you can also refresh this whenever you use your Wand of Atonement. But anyways, we'll get on to the next boss. Once again, a tier 3 Enderman Slayer boss is a big leap in difficulty, with the boss having 50 million health, 12,000 DPS, and 3 hits phases of 60 hits each. So let's go over quickly what you are going to need. By now, you will definitely have had Final Destination armor, and ideally you will want to get up to 10,000 kills, and as well have the enchant of Refrigerate 3 on it, because it grants up to 25% of the mana being used to be casted as defense for up to 10 seconds, and with 1,000 defense being the cap. And of course, this is highly recommended that you have at least 2 of the pieces for a tier 3 boss, just because it's going to be a lot easier. You're also going to need something like a Vorpal Katana, Wand of Atonement, Necromancer Sword, but this time you will want at least a Master Mode Floor 1 souls on it, because these are a lot more tanky and they will take a lot less damage. And the same can be said about the tier 4. I'll just go over it again if you forget. And as well, I would recommend you put on a Vanquished Gas Cloak, ideally with Vitality on it, since Vitality gives additional healing. It's not required, it's just something else to mention. You could also use the blue belt or higher for it. This is pretty much the same thing for a tier 4 as well. It's just going to be a lot easier. And just keep in mind, you can also use the Void Edge Katana. A Vorpal is just more recommended since, again, it is more damage. I also would recommend you put at least either Fabled or a Withered Reforge on it, since these Reforges tend to do more damage. And once again, you are going to want to equip an Enderman pet. I would recommend an 80 or higher epic Enderman pet, just because it's a lot easier. And you will also want 600 or above match whole power. And once again, I would also recommend you use a power orb. Tends to be a power up such as the Mana Flux, since the Mana Flux is a good option for most bosses. But anyways, in addition to the other 2 phases that you will have to face, the tier 3 boss introduces the mechanic of head spawning in the final phase after the final hits phase, and these heads deal 800 damage per second, with their damage doubling based on how many heads are active. You can basically remove these heads just by looking at them. It's not too hard, and as a reminder, if you are struggling to look at them, you can use a mod such as Sky Tills, because Sky Tills has the neat feature of being able to basically highlight said heads and make it a lot easier to see. So anyways, we'll get on to the next boss. In the final tier of the Enderman Slayer boss fight, you will be facing a lot of challenges, mainly the 2000 DPS thrown heads, a 100 hits phase, as well as the throw beacons, as well as the boss's damage increasing from 12,000 to 21,000, and its health raising all the way up to 210 million. And with this, you are going to need a couple of things, and the main things that you're going to need are 10,000 kill or above Final Destination armor, with all 4 pieces having at least Refrigerate 3 on them, as well as a Vorpal or Atom Split Katana. Though a Atom Split Katana is necessary, a Vorpal Katana can get the job done just fine if you have high enough magical power, as well as the previously mentioned Necromancer Lord Sword with Ultimate Wise 5 with Master Mode Floor 1 souls. You could also, of course, like I said previously, use the Reaper Scythe with the Ultimate Wise 5 and the same Master Mode Floor 1 zombie summons, which will get the hit space down a little faster. But you will also want a Vanquished Gas Cloak or other healing type equipment. I just prefer to use the blue belt or higher, as well as the Gas Cloak, as well as a level 90 or higher Enderman pet, as well as my Wand of Atonement with at least Ultimate Wise 5 on it, and this is non-negotiable. You're going to need as much mana as you can get for this, as well as some Soul Flow for item abilities. This can be stored in the Soul Flow battery, ideally, as well as the Overflow mana ability being on to give you 400 additional mana. You will also want at least 700 magical power, as you're going to need a lot of damage for us as well, and I would highly recommend at least a Mana Flux Power Orb. An Overflux Power Orb is ideal, though you can get by with just a Mana Flux Power Orb, plus the final ability that you will be facing is the laser phase, which you will have to jump over the lasers, otherwise the lasers will do 25% of your health and take away 12% of your vitality per hit for 90 seconds. And once again, if you are struggling to do some damage, there are a couple of things that you can use in order to increase your damage. One of those things being the aspect of the end combined with the Enderman's second ability, as well as the Ragnarok axe, which can be used during the laser phases in order to just get a little bit more damage. And that is all that we have for today. And as a reminder, if you guys did like what you see today, please consider hitting the like button and subscribing, as this video took me quite a while to get. And anyways, we'll see you guys next time.